If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreons out there. If you like bonus content, you want some extra Skiba News Nation stuff, please go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
With the son of the legendary Rob Skiba, Jeremiah Skiba, what's up?
With my great and insightful co-host, Mr. Jake Graham.
Dude, someone should do conspiracy news. It would be 10 times better than what you see on television.
It's like they don't even want to wake up.
He's on a quest for truth.
Welcome to TrutherCon. Our vision is to grow the largest and most profound exposition of truth in the modern age. Here, no truth is beyond reproach. An amazing opportunity for you guys to connect with one another, for us to ask hard questions for the presenters that are coming up, because we're all here with a common goal, to seek after truth together, seek after truth together.
Bigger and better than ever before.
Go.
Cat.
Okay.
But
anyways, hey, Skiba News Nation family. We have a very special guest here today. And no, it's not Charlie's, it's we're interviewing somebody that came to TrutherCon 2025. He was a very special guest, and we love to have him as a special guest for TrutherCon 2026, the great JayDreamerZ. So please welcome him to Skiba News Nation. Welcome.
Aloha. What's up, guys?
We've tried to get you on so many times, and I feel like it's like, oh, something happened, and right when it's about to happen. So I'm finally glad that we were able to have you on.
Yeah, me too. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, man.
Oh yeah,
so
I'm super stoked to have Jay on, because he's sent over some really cool stuff, including a music video. I wanted to start off because I think our audience would really appreciate it, and not only that, I've just become very fascinated with your breakdown of the Paleo Hebrew and just your theories of connecting the language to your cosmological and realm understanding. It's really fascinating. I think this is going to be a really interesting episode for a lot of people. But let's kick it off with this pretty epic music video you made. Check this out, everybody.
G.I. Joe, I stop Cobra. Shabbat Shalom, we rock Torah. My doctrine shows to knock Noah. Ruach, it flows, the crops growing. Me, I'm released from Egypt. Me and my people, shalom. We gone, we leave and redeemed. It sounds sweet. Let my speech be seasoned with peace. We pound beats to the soundest teachings. Let it be in the towns we preach in. The people found least will abound in freedom. Micah 4:2, Isaiah 2:3. Then go back to our roots in the east of Eden. Pesach, matzah, first fruits, weeks, then trumpets, atonement, tabernacle, Sabbath on weekends, and we continue practicing all of the proper procedures. Practically prophets, a priest to the people brought up in research. Never bowing to Caesar, proclaiming there's another King Yeshua who we serve. Acts 17, verse 7, it features me, cause I'm a Hebrew descendant of Eber. G.I. Joe, I stop Cobra. Shabbat Shalom, we rock Torah. My doctrine shows Tanakh Noah. Ruach, it flows, the crops growing. G.I. Joe, I stop Cobra. Shabbat Shalom, we rock Torah. My doctrine shows Tanakh Noah. Ruach, it flows, the crops growing. Extra, extra, read all about it, let the shofar blow. I need to shout it to the regular secular in the sepulchre sleeping. Wake up all you sleepers, then proceed to the precinct. Take us to your leader, see, he's the police chief, teacher, and high priest. Reach for your zitzi. We're learning the law so we can walk in obedience, in the sense that we repent of graffiti. I'm the road runner, no one deceives me. Coyote's cold, but he's not gonna eat me. I'm phoning home like a lonely E.T. Colon Messiah Jeremiah 33:3. My desire is entirely E.D.E.N. Hashem of the remnant we be. No sicknesses, witnessing is easy. Cross over the Jordan to be born again. See me as a Hebrew. G.I. Joe, I stop Cobra. Shabbat Shalom, we rock Torah. Yeah. My doctrine shows Tanakh Noah. Ruach, it flows, the crops growing. G.I. Joe, I stop Cobra. Shabbat Shalom, we rock Torah. My doctrine shows Tanakh Noah. Ruach, it flows, the crops growing.
Okay.
It was hard for me not
Very
to start
cool.
rapping over that because I jam out to that my own stuff.
Dude, that was epic. You're making the shofar reference, and I just put a cool thing in our shop. It looks like the Nike logo, but it says shofar. So good.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
And I
like
thought it was
that.
pretty funny.
That's
Oh.
cool.
Yeah, man. So go ahead, Jake.
Very good. Yeah, suffice it to say, he's a very talented YouTube creator, author, musician, rapper, whatever. So maybe you can give an introduction to our audience for those who are not familiar with your work, Jay. What do you like to get into, and kind of tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Easy. So I've always been curious since I was a kid. So, I was put into like all the special advanced classes and stuff because everything was so boring and I hated it and my mind wanted to go elsewhere. But everything really took off for me whenever I, was taken to church, invited to church when I was younger, maybe like 19 or 20. And the people were reading from the Old Testament and talking about giants and the world flooding and stuff. And I'm like, what? Say that again. Wait, go back to that. I want to know more about what's going on there. So I started asking a lot of questions. Didn't get a lot of answers. I just kind of, people really didn't seem to know. And so I got a multitude of different educated guesses or dismissals or God's ways are higher than our ways. And that's, some things are not for us to know and stuff like that. And it didn't sit well with me. So I decided to just start exploring on my own. And, that's whenever I started to really dive into the Bible myself, especially the Old Testament. Something that actually helped me out was whenever I was reading through the genealogies. It's typically the part in the Bible where a lot of people get bored because it's really sounds redundant, so-and-so beget so-and-so or whatnot. But I started to realize that occasionally they would mention a person's name and then say, this is the so-and-so when this happened. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And the name lined up with the event. So I was like, for example, Peleg is a huge one that talks about when the world split. So I'm like, well, what does that mean? I need to look this up. I look up the name Peleg. I start looking up these other names. And then I start looking up the name of Jesus and the name of God and led me to the Tetragrammaton, and I started looking up all these names, and then pretty soon I'm just starting to learn Hebrew naturally just from learning the names and the letters and stuff. So I decided to look into the Hebrew alphabet so that I could start to read the Old Testament in the original language.
This one right here is B, bait. This is the letter for a house. Over here, you can see it looks kind of like a container, and it's sort of like a schematic, how we do schematics for housing today, and you would draw it from above looking down. As you can see, it looks almost like it's sort of a spiral, but it's not. This is the entrance, and this is the inner chamber. So this would door at the top of it, and this is the all-seeing eye, basically. This is the depressurization point of the world. We've got Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. See that? How it was more square right there, and this follows suit in Egyptian too.
And then I came across a really good book. I can't remember the name of it off the top right now. It might be "Come Out of Her, My People" or something. I can't remember. But this dude, he was featuring the Paleo Hebrew alphabet, and it was more picture form, and it's basically interlinked with ancient Phoenician. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. The letters used to be pictures. Okay, cool. So I started studying the pictures. Then I was able to go back into the Old Testament, translate, the Hebrew into Paleo Hebrew, and then sort of do my own transliteration of the Old Testament, the specific areas, like, for example, the 10 Commandments or something, and get my own, more specific literal interpretation from reading it in the original script.
About the Phoenician alphabet, here's a variant of it. Here's a version of it. This is the letter I in the modern language.
Stuff like that kind of took off my truth-seeking journey, but the giants thing, Genesis 6, the flood, the devastation, that really boosted me in the direction of the apocalypse, the creation story, the beginning, the end, and then, of course, flipping out all the way to the book of Revelation and decoding that and trying to figure out what exactly is being talked about, what can I expect to happen, because everyone's got a million different theories on the book of Revelation and the apocalypse and what it looks like. It's a different flavor for everyone. So I wanted to have my own, based on my own research, my own path, and all of, my life's work. And that led me to putting everything together, all my puzzle pieces that I had, from science to learning about plasma physics and electricity, to history, to prophecy, all of my studies, and really packing it into this event of creation and destruction, the beginning and the end, so that I could better understand what that's about, what it looks like, and furthermore, what to expect, especially whenever I go over the prophecies and I'm seeing a lot of the prophecies being fulfilled, a lot of the omens that are now coming to pass, and many have already come to pass. So now I'm feel better educated on what to look for. So I started to teach people about this after I started my YouTube channel. I really started it to record things for my children, for posterity or whatever. I didn't expect people to subscribe or anything. But once I started really diving into ancient giant beings, titans, the size the humans grow to, gigantic growth and stuff like that, and then an instant petrification of biological life forms, and then how that happens, the next step was naturally the apocalypse. So I gave my own version of the apocalypse a name, which I call the plasma apocalypse. I mix it in with my own cosmology, which, I've got little pieces of different cosmological views that make sense to me, and I put those pieces together. And I feel way more confident lately. Not that I, know everything about the apocalypse or anything, but I feel much better than the version of me 10 or 15 years ago that knew next to nothing about these mysteries. So for me, my theory that I'm coming up with is my own little catch-all. It's my own little theory of everything. It has all of the conspiracy theories are all meet at the apocalypse. It all meet there.
No way.
It's me.
It's me. Good vibes.
Yeah, good vibes.
We're on the right track. No turning back now. Symbols of the past apocalypse.
Knew it. The legends are true.
We're no longer lost. We head north. Follow me.
Don't you mean like and subscribe?
So I wrote a book about it. People were basically demanding you should write a book every live stream. So I sat down, I started writing a book. Finished my second book not too long ago, and I'll probably be writing more.
Hey, we'll plug it, man. I will say during TrutherCon, we had the Truther Tank where we did the panel, and I feel like your answers were some of the most like captivating ones, like made you think a little bit longer and made you think a little bit differently than, you know, some of the other answers. So, and I was sitting right next to you, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I was trying to, I always try to consider my audience too, you know, whenever I was there. So I was trying to think about, you know, I don't like to come across as overbearing or as a matter of fact or anything. I like to build bridges whenever I'm talking to people about wild ideas, which are, you know, some theories of innovation that I've come up with. And I like to start with what people are familiar with already, what they already know. It could be religion, it could be architecture, it could be history, it could be math, it could be whatever, and then sort of build a bridge over to something a bit more extreme or a bit more wild as we become philosophers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Instead of engaging in debates or anything like that.
The moment somebody says they have it all figured out, it's the moment sometimes I tune them off, because if somebody is so stuck on their own opinion and their own perspective, it shows that they're not having this inquisitive mind and process, which is what gets people to this next level. And so, you know, it's important to be able to introduce those pearls of wisdom, so to speak, so it doesn't get trampled on. And I think I appreciate, you know, your description of how to do that.
Yeah,
Nobody likes somebody smarter than them. You know what I mean? Like you bring it down. You know what I mean? Like in a real way. If I hear somebody talking and they're talking way over my head, I just tune out. But I don't know. I feel like everybody on this stream, I mean, has a good way of, you know, explaining what they mean to say in a easy way to understand, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I feel you got to meet, you know, I try practicing meeting people where they are, you know, because I've been there too. I try not to ever, you know, come across as holier than thou or more intelligent than someone else or whatever. And I've been told a couple of times, like, wow, like, you know, it's kind of intimidating. You seem to know a lot about whatever it is, but, you know, I can get excited sometimes when I'm in my element. I'm pretty antisocial when I'm around other people, but when I'm in my element and I start, you know, the doors open to talk about my particular areas of interest or whatever, I'm very passionate about it. You know, like to me,
Dude,
talking about these subjects is just, you know, up there. It's tippy top. And it's not for me to go around insisting everyone else needs to get as excited about it as I am, or even interested in it at all, because there's, you know, there's different types of people. But for those who are, if they're hungry, you know, I'll toss them a morsel or two.
All right. Well, let's just set the stage and say, for this episode of Skiba News Nation, you are more than welcome to unhook the chains, and we would love to just hear what is right pressing on your mind. You know, we're not going to get scared away, and I think we're willing to consider whatever. And so, you know, please feel free to just go deep, and you know, I think our audience will very much appreciate that as well.
All right, let's go deep. So right now the moon mission is underway, the Artemis moon mission, and we touched on that before the show started. But
Fools.
Yeah, totally April Fools. I'm interested to see what the aftermath of this is going to be today. But I have a unique theory about what they're actually doing. So I know a lot of people, you know, different conspiracy theorists will just be like, it's all fake and just leave it at that. And it's not, it's just a show. It's just magic. It's nothing. I don't think it's nothing. I think that they're actually doing things. I think they're working on certain things and they have certain projects in the works, but we're just not being told the truth about what they're actually doing. So in short, I think they're trying to blow up the moon. Now, I think that there are two different moons. I think there is the luminary in the sky that we call the moon and that most people associate with the concept of the moon. And I think that that's just a light. It's a projection that comes from above or beyond. Then I think there's the source of that projection, which I personally believe to be a portion of the firmament that goes over the earth that droops down and hangs down like a bowl or an eyeball facing down towards the earth. And I call that the apex dome. I believe that all of the firmament is made out of frozen gas or ice, you could say, and that the light from beyond the plasma on the other side of it passes through, that the light passes through and it projects planets and the moon and points of focus that we call the sun and stars and comets and things like that into our atmosphere. And that's why they all go the same way, because the plasma on the other side of the dome is spiraling in that exact same motion. According to the laws of plasma physics, it has to. So why would they blow up the moon? Well, I believe that NASA, the elites, I'm talking about the cream of the crop, the tippy top, the people who are actually in charge. I believe, and I read about this in my second book, that they are all family. I believe that they are all related, that there are these 13 different tribes that come from the North Pole. And I believe that there used to be land at the North Pole and that land is going to reemerge one day. And that land, to me, is the Garden of Eden. That's how I start off my second book, telling people, as a matter of fact, there is a terrestrial paradise on Earth. And there are different types. There's a celestial, there's caverns under the earth, etc. But there's land at the North Pole. These people come from that land. The people who lived at the North Pole, according to tradition and my own research, lived for a very long time. The conditions are much different because of what they were in proximity to. There's an object up there, and if you live closer in proximity to it, you benefit from it. Basically, it is terrestrial plasma that invigorates the body. It is geoplasmas. It's a cold plasma too, so you could bathe in it literally, and it wouldn't electrocute you or burn you or anything. And what it does is it is antimicrobial, antifungal. It cleanses the body. It rids of disease. It stimulates your collagen and your elastin and your cellular structure, allowing you to look young and preserve your youth forever. It is literally the fountain of youth, and it comes right up out of a central mountain in paradise. That has been depicted on ancient maps. Oftentimes it's known as Rupus Nigra.
I heard Nikola Tesla would bathe himself in electromagnetism or plasma or whatever, and that was a way that he was going to invent some kind of new body washing technique or something.
Yeah, and I mean they're doing it now in the medical field, but they do it on such a small scale. You know what I mean? It's not going to keep someone alive forever. They're doing it to get rid of wrinkles and stuff because, like I said, it makes your body produce more elastin, which stretches your skin or keeps it more stretchy and, can snap back into place. But back to NASA. So these people, royalty, presidents, world rulers are across the world, all these government organizations and whatnot, I believe that they stem from the people who were kicked out or had to vacate that northern island paradise, which is a whole continent that's cross-sectioned by 4 rivers and split into 4 because of a cataclysm that happens that puts that place underwater. So it goes back and forth. We go into cycles where that place is inundated by water and a flood comes, which is the story of Atlantis. And then something happens and that land rises up out of the ocean once again. And so these people become nomadic. These people who have lived for hundreds and hundreds of years with superior intellect just from experience of living for so very long, taking it all the way out into the Southlands.
It reminds me of have you seen the Disney movie Atlantis? How it kind of comes up? Yeah. That's what it kind of reminds me of.
Yes. I mean, I feel like that's the exact thing that we can expect to happen. As a matter of fact,
I love that movie.
I think Revelation actually discusses this when it talks about this beast that rises up out of the ocean, because it comes right out. The book of Revelation is very symbolic. There's a lot of symbolisms and stuff involved, but the author makes a point to stop the symbolism and say, in regards to the 7 heads that rise up out of the ocean, make no mistake, I'm paraphrasing. These 7 heads are 7 mountains, not 7 hills of Rome or Jerusalem or some other place. There's like a million places on earth that all want to be this place. And so they always name the 7. These are our 7 hills. These are our 7 mountains, etc. These are prolific mountains. These are a type of like basalt columns or pillars that would rise up like the Devil's Tower. These are huge. And what they are, I believe, is 7 plasma volcanoes or just regular volcanoes that will emit gases whenever the inner earth starts to depressurize. And those gases will rush up, they ionize, they become plasma, and people see pillars that shoot up out of them made out of light. Welcome to Hyperborean.
It's magnificent. The journey starts here.
And they're located in the north. That's why if you look at old maps, the Northern Ocean was called the Septentrion or the Septentrio or Septentrionalis, which literally means 7, septen. And then trio or teru comes from the Proto-Indo-European word daru or deru, which is where we get our word tar from, or tree. So it's the 7 trees, these 7 pillars, 7 columns, 7 sisters, 7 titans, 7 giants, over and over and over. Oftentimes there's stories about them having turned into stone when they died or whatever. That's when the plasma retracts, those gases run out, and people just see what is left over, which is a mountain, whenever they actually go up there and they can get close. So we have a lot of these myths and legends that come from that. So I believe that one of the big secrets, especially the secret of the Illuminati, the Freemasons, etc., all the secret societies, is the secret of the apocalypse, is the secret that this is a cyclical event, that cataclysms befall this world, and we can understand how. We can understand the science behind it, how it happens, and what to expect and what dominoes it's going to push over. So I'll explain to you guys how it happens. It has to do with pressure. I remember... I had the honor of listening to your dad at the Denver Flat Earth Gathering, whatever it's called, Flat Earth Symposium. I forgot what it's called.
Yeah, I forget what it's called.
The International Conference?
Yes. But so he mentioned the word terrarium a bunch of times, and he was talking about, he was alluding to us living in a closed system, etc. So whenever I incorporated this cosmological view, and I don't want to say it's strictly a flat earth view, but having a dome over the earth and the earth is contained and closed off was huge and crucial to my research, because there is an underworld and because the earth is constantly producing life. And that means that the pressure inside of that closed system has to continually increase. The more gases, the more life that is contributed to our life up here up on the surface, the more pressure is going to increase. When you increase the pressure within the atmosphere, it gets hotter. Whenever you increase the pressure to a certain degree in a closed system, it necessitates an opening. It necessitates a pressure release. There has to be a pressure release. So then I'm like, well, that means the sky has to open. That means that makes sense now. All these different references I've seen, biblical or not, because this is really across every religion, to the sky tearing open now makes sense to me, especially whenever I think about the next domino. How does rapid atmospheric depressurization affect life here on the surface? What can I expect to see? What can I expect to happen if that happens? Well, let's start with weather. Low pressure system. It rains. We have stormy weather. This would be a worldwide storm, a tempest unlike any other tempest that anyone's ever seen. And it's alluded to time and time again. Also, buoyancy would increase within that atmospheric system, which means things would float, which things would become lightweight as all of the air is rushing up and out of a hole in the sky itself. And that made me start to think about, Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun video and so many other pop culture references to like things floating up into the sky or getting sucked out or the sky ripping open or whatever. So I'm just putting all these little pieces together. Now, I believe NASA and other government organizations want to effectively help themselves. And I don't want to say they're helping out humanity, but they are, if what I'm saying is it has any merit to it. They are by extension. Really, it's sort of a selfish act. Those families that spread out across the world, they want to save their own families, as would any of you. So they're starting to dig underground bunkers, and they're starting to hunker down for an event that is going to happen. One of the things that they're trying to do, if let's just assume for a moment that what I have postulated, what I put forth is true. If it's true, let's also say that other people know about it and they have known about it for thousands of years, and that they're passing this secret down to people, right? One of these days, son, the atmosphere will depressurize, a hole will open up in the sky, etc. So one of the things that happens is that if the pressure continues to increase and the sun is under the dome or in our system here with us, that sunlight, we should expect scientifically for it to get hotter and hotter and hotter, and therefore it would go through a color change in its spectrum. So whenever you have a light bulb or whatever, and it's more of a soft, cooler light, it will be more of a red spectrum. As it gets warmer, it'll go orange, yellow, white, and then blue. Our sun is that light bulb. When the sun starts to get hotter and hotter because of the added gases and the added pressure up there where it is, it will start to change color from red to orange to yellow to white, which it is today, to blue. This would be the blue star Kachina that is talked about by the Hopi tribe whenever the blue star returns to this world. And the sun itself will start to scorch the earth and burn everything on the ground. Now, an interesting side note is we have seen a lot of wildfires, an increase in those lately over the past 10 to 15 years at least. And we've had people notice that blue objects don't seem to be burning in these wildfires. Well, if you have the color blue and the blue light of the sun hits it, it gets rid of that blue light. That's why we see blue. So it acts as a protective measure. So anyways, back to why they want to blow up the moon. And by the moon, I mean the source moon, which is that apex dome, which is referred to in the old world and in ancient Mesopotamia as a god known as Sin or Sheen, which literally means to shine, which is where we get our word sheen from. So anyways, let's say that they puncture some holes in the weak spots of that particular hanging part of the firmament, right? It's not going to cause the apocalypse. They're going to cause holes temporarily. As their bombs blow up, it would create temporary electromagnetic pulses, which means that the Earth's magnetic field in that area up at the top of the world would dissipate, but only for a little bit, only until it reconstructs itself, which would happen fairly quickly. So you can imagine that this depressurization that would ensue will only last a matter of seconds, but that's enough. They're only trying to let some of the pressure out of this world. Because if you let some of the pressure out during a time when the sun is getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and there's all this talk of global warming and stuff like that, you're going to create low pressure system. You're manipulating the weather on a worldwide scale. So you're going to drop the temperature of the entire Earth very quickly. A lot of clouds are going to develop and stuff like that. And you're going to prevent, the sun will probably even go back a step in its color or something, I would imagine. So that there's different aspects to why this could be seen as a good thing to some people. So they're going to let out some of the pressure so that whenever the big bang or the explosion of the sky does happen and the sky rips open, it's not as bad. There's less pressure being built up. Or you could say that they're trying to extend their own rule here on Earth because their time is short. So if they let out some of the pressure and the pressure needs to build up in order for the apocalypse to happen again, now they have a bit more time. They've just bought themselves a little bit more time. So I think if you look it up, you'll see that there are approximately 10,000 craters visible with the human eye on the moon, on the side that faces us. There are also approximately across the entire night sky 10,000 observable stars with the human eye. They're really close to the same number. There's approximately 10,000 satellites that Elon Musk has put into orbit for internet, so people can chase the satellites with their cell phones and get signal, I guess. I don't believe it. I believe that these are bombs. Those satellites are blowing up. There's news stories about them blowing up there in space all of the time. How does that even happen? Scientifically, according to their own model, how can anything blow up in a vacuum? But they're blowing up there. And I think that they're trying to crack open the dome. And this is a war with God. This is a war against the heavens, or it can be seen that way, or interpreted as much, shooting missiles up at the sky and waging war on the angels or God or whatever is up there. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I am right now, like where my studies are. There's literally a project that was declassified. It was leaked, called Project A119, where the United States and Russia, both before the whole moon landing thing, about 10 years before that, had a secret plan to blow up the moon using allegedly nuclear bombs, that they were going to blow up the moon as a show of force. And this is all public information. It was leaked because of Carl Sagan, who was in on the project. He was an advisor on, you know, what domino would touch what domino after a nuclear bomb went off up there on the moon or on the firmament. So Carl Sagan was involved, and because he was involved, somebody was writing a book, an autobiography or a biography on Carl Sagan. So he started slipping some of the information that was highly classified and top secret. And people found out about it. So the government came back and said, "Oh, we were going to do that. Yeah, but you know, let's declassify it." And this was like in the 90s. So this was some time later, decades and decades later. Now they're saying, "Oh yeah, well, we declassified that and we just decided to just land on it instead." They had all the steps lined out. Step 1 was launch people up there on a mission to just observe, just check it out with their eyes and look for different things, especially weak spots on the moon, which they already told you in the paperwork. The weak spots are around what they call the terminator line, which is where the shadow hits the light on the moon. Now, on a full moon, let's imagine that the moon is projected into our atmosphere from that apex dome that's hanging off of the firmament, okay? This is why we only see one side of the moon. It is that side of the apex dome that is projecting its own image into our sky. The terminator line of that on a full moon would be where the apex dome touches the larger dome or the firmament itself, where it is fixed to that. So their plan in Project A119 would be to put bombs all the way around the part where the apex dome is hanging from the firmament itself. That would be the terminator line.
Wow. So very, very fascinating. I think just to encapsulate some of the aspects of your theory that I've not heard before is the element of the moon being the representation of that hanging part of the firmament in the center aspect. And just, it's really fascinating. I definitely, I see this ongoing Star Wars that you're kind of describing as, you know, we have the Artemis mission happening today. We're recording this for the record on Wednesday, the 1st of April. And so it's interesting that they're trying to extend their time by releasing the pressure of the system we're in. And it's very, very fascinating. A lot of people have never heard this kind of theory before, likely, that are watching our show. So I just want to, let everybody know, hey, don't kick it before you really hear what Jay is talking about here, because there's a lot of ancient history and things such as, the Atlantis being in the North Pole, so to speak, and elements about that when people start to dig into it, there's more truth than fiction in exactly what you're kind of describing. And so, I don't want people to get all freaked out too quick, but we also don't want you to, pull in the reins, because this is really interesting stuff. So
that's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, man, so to speak, like as the North Pole starts being drawn up by the electromagnetic forces, the tip of the iceberg starts to get bigger. And let's talk about a little bit Mount Meru and the center location on terrestrial Earth. What is this big mountain in the center of the map? And is this going to come out before the plasma apocalypse? And what is your, what's the timetable that you're seeing? I mean, obviously they're trying to slow it down if this is the case, but how does the appearance of Atlantis again, parallel the timetable of the big pop?
Yeah, good questions. So the structure of that island, this is something I'm also into, is the geology. So I like to look into the astrology, the cosmology, the geology, all of it. I want to know the hows and whys of what it consists of, the origins, etc. Mount Meru itself. So for people that don't know, I don't have like a picture or anything, but if you look at many of the medieval maps, there will be a circular island at the center of the world at the North Pole. and it has 4 rivers on it. It's almost never referred to as Eden, although it clearly resembles what Eden is described as in the book of Genesis.
The crater of civilization, because it's a valley, as you can see. It's a bowl. It's sort of a bowl shape or a plate. Plate is probably a better description for it, but you could say bowl as well, because it has this high and lofty rim all the way around the outside. All of these mountain ranges surround the outside portion of this inner central land on this map. And I believe that that's because of electricity. This is the circle image, which meant a basket, a bread basket, a crater, a grail, a container of life, something that held life in it. Why? Because of that beam of energy that shot up from Mount Meru right here, right? And it goes up and it creates this sort of electrical dome around this island, which might help to explain where all these mountains came from, because electricity has the ability, especially a strong electrical current, can pull land up. It can pull mud up, it can pull sand up into the air, and then petrify it and change the chemical bonds. And this was the cradle of life. This was the grail that held this stick figure in the middle that was seen as dying on a cross or Odin on a tree, etc. This is that grail. This is the X that marks the spot. There is a mountain at the middle. So there's a circular continent with a huge crystal clear lake in the middle, a pure lake of water. This is not salt water or anything. This is virgin water, to use a term. And in the middle of that virgin water, we have this huge towering black rock, and it was known as Rupus Nigra, which means black rock. And it shoots up like a black tower at the center of the world, and it rises up. The reason it rises up and it's not a part of some mountain chain or anything like that is because of what it consists of. And it's very similar to the Devil's Tower or the Giant's Causeway over in the UK. Those are made out of what they call basalt columns, basalt pillars. They're hexagonal pillars of. The official academic explanation is that they're like the plug of an ancient volcano where the wind blew the volcano away over time and it just left the hardened lava in the middle. That's literally their explanation. I don't believe that one. My explanation is that lava is not melted rock. It is not melted soil or anything like that. It's melted metal that is mixed with soil and rocks and stuff like that. The metals melt. So what happens is we have all of this heat that is happening inside of the earth. The earth is heating up right now exponentially due to radioactive decay. So radioactive materials, which I can explain those too, are heating up. They're losing all of their energy, and as they do that, they give off energy, which produces heat. So they give off massive amounts of heat, which melts the liquid or the metals around them. Right now, when you have all this liquid molten metal and you introduce it to electrical current, it can become magnetized and it can become attracted to that electrical current if it's strong enough. So this is where the plasma of the plasma apocalypse comes into play. There are 2 plasmas at play during the plasma apocalypse. There is a geoplasma inside of the earth. All of those inner earth, hollow earth gases will be released. Right now they're being kept in by the earth's magnetic field because they're repelled by a strong magnetic force. So that same magnetic force is holding them all in the underworld. When that electromagnetic force goes into flux, it creates little windows where gases can erupt from time to time and allow more gases out of the hollow earth and up here into our world. That's where we get volcanic explosions and earthquakes and stuff like that. The more flux it goes into, the more earthquakes and volcanoes and stuff will start to go off. And these are birth pangs of a woman about to give birth to something. That birth is light that comes up from inside of the earth in the form of these gases that ionize. So the gases rush up through the cracks and crevices. And just like whenever you rub your feet on the carpet and then you touch the doorknob, it electrocutes you. Same thing happens to those gases when they're rushing up through the cracks and crevices, being squeezed together. They ionize and they become electrical. They become plasmas. So what happens is this plasma shoots up through a hole in the middle of the world, the largest hole, traditionally the entrance into the inner earth. And there are many, but this is the largest that I'm referring to.
this plasma rushes up and it shoots up and it magnetizes the rocks all the way around it. So all of this liquid metal that we call lava or whatever, it rushes towards the center and it starts to rise up with it. The magnetism from that plasma literally pulls it up into the air, just like if you took a balloon and held it above your hair will rise up, you know, defying gravity or whatever, and like just floating up in the sky. The Earth will do that too if the electromagnetic force is strong enough, which it is. So what happens is all that lava starts to rise up, but then it takes shape because of cymatics. So the electricity that is running through it has a certain frequency, and the lava resonates to that frequency, which causes it to create a plutonic solid, which is a shape, which is a hexagon. In most cases, depends, but oftentimes you'll see a pentagonal or a hexagonal shape, right? So it takes shape, it rises up, and as soon as the electricity, as soon as it's far away enough from that electrical source, it will solidify instantaneously, and it becomes a pillar, a rock pillar. I don't know what happened to my screen. Anyways, so that's how the mountain is made. So the mountain is made by the earth naturally. I believe that this is the same mountain is the Tower of Babylon. I believe that this is where the whole story of the Tower of Babylon happened. So the Tower of Babel, right? This was the story whenever the Tower of Babel fell and all of the people lost the ability to speak to one another in one world language. I believe that one world language was telepathy, that the people in Eden were telepathic, that the people, and I believe that all these ancient Old Testament places are not in the modern day Middle East, that I believe that those survivors, those people that fled, that became nomadic and were named different tribes, Phoenicians, Tartarians, barbarians, etc., and so on and so forth, they settled in different places in the north, spreading out to the south. And wherever they settled, they took with them their ancient stories, their place names, their river names, their mountain names, etc. And they wanted to feel more at home, or sometimes maybe even thought they were home, right? So I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, the Tower of Babel. So the Tower of Babel, right? So let's say that Mount Meru is or represents the Tower of Babel. When you have that beam of light that is shooting up out of it, the world goes into a plentiful golden age because it's geoplasmas that are life-giving and contribute to gigantic growth and flora and fauna producing more vegetation, etc. When that light goes away, you have the opposite. You have famine and you have sicknesses and disease that start creeping back into our world. But if the atmosphere is full of these beams of light, Mount Meru is not the only one, it's just the largest one. The world has all these pillars, all of these poles, these columns and beams, which is why people in antiquity, pagans and whatnot, worshipped poles. They were pole worshipers. They worshiped beams and pillars and columns and poles and stuff, which turned into trees and turned into other objects that are similar. If you have all of this energy, which is what it is, filling our atmosphere up here on the surface for, let's say, 1,000 years or whatever, a few things are going to happen. More dominoes are going to tip over. It's going to get warmer. The climate is going to get nice and warm after a huge low depressurization and low pressure came about. Things will start becoming more tropical like. Oh yeah, Tower of Babel. So anyways, another thing that happens is you have all of this electricity that fills the air. The air itself becomes electrically amplified. And I mean to an extreme degree, way stronger than anyone's ever seen here during like an electrical storm or whatever. It's just everywhere. The sky itself is red. People are seeing plasma filaments like dragons and skyworms and stuff just undulating, floating through the air, or balls of light or ball lightning basically floating about in different sizes, attracted to or repelled by whatever's around them. And this leads us into fantasy and these ancient stories of the times of magic and stuff like that. So what happens is, because we are also electromagnetic beings, we resonate with the amplified electricity in the atmosphere, which means our synapses and our literal brain, our physical brain and stuff, start firing off. And it makes connections where there are no connections today, which is why we only use like 10% of our brain, they say. But during these times, people would use way more, as you are completely energized. This touches other dominoes, like the need to eat, or a hunger rising up, and there would be no hunger. There would be no need to go consume a bunch of things because you already have the energy. It's the only reason we eat today. No need to sleep. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that will be eradicated during this time. But another thing is that our telepathic abilities, which is our own spirit, would be strengthened, basically, and we would be able to be super empathetic towards plants and animals and people around us. But that's only while these beams of light are in the world, only while it's filling the world and amplifying the world and powering the world. When they retract and the Tower of Babel falls, slowly by slowly, all that energy is dissipating as the earth charges it and pulls it back into Sheol or back into Hades or back into the underworld. And then people are no longer able to hear one another or understand what they're saying. So they have to start developing picture forms and drawing to one another and then like representing that with, you know, speech and stuff like that. And this is where languages develop.
Wow, it's a cyclical pattern as you describe this kind of the system. And how many times do you think this flip of the polarization of the world happens? Because it's kind of like right now the Earth has for so long been drawing energy into the north as you're describing, and then so this plasma apocalypse happens and it jettisons all this energy out.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you think this cycle has happened? Is this just an ongoing cyclical pattern? And I mean, how does recorded history?
Many times. I couldn't even put a number on it, but I will differentiate. I believe there is a difference between what I refer to as the apocalypse and cataclysms that happen. They both happen for the same reason, because of polarity reversal on Earth. Okay. But the apocalypse is when the sky breaks open, or the word apocalypse literally means to take the covering away from. That's what it means in Greek. So our covering is the dome. Our covering is the firmament. So yes, there is an inner, awakening and all this other stuff. Like there's, people describe the apocalypse in many different ways, like I said. But I physically believe in a physical paradise, in a physical dome over the earth, and all these things manifesting physically as well as symbolically and spiritually and internally and all that stuff. So what happens is we have the apocalypse cycle, the plasma apocalypse. Whenever the pressure builds up, we go through an electromagnetic reversal on Earth. And remember how I said the gases in the underworld are held down by the magnetic force of the Earth? The same gases in our atmosphere above are being held in or pressurized by the magnetic force, not by the dome, not by the ice itself. It's by the magnetism. So the invisible begets the physical world, or the visible world. So you have the magnetic invisible force that is literally protecting us and holding in all of these gases and keeping the world pressurized. It is also keeping out cosmic plasmas that are circling above, like I said, kind of waiting to get in because it wants to ground to the earth. When you remove that magnetic force from above and just let go, it's like the hand of God just letting go of his protection of the earth. All of the gases that were repelled and keep being pressed down are now free to rush all the way up to the apex of our sky, where they will punch a hole in the ice above and create that actual apocalyptic event. But we go through geomagnetic reversals quite often, and it's not always enough to blow a hole in the sky or to blow the sky open or whatever. So even in recent years, just over 100 years ago, people have seen, and I've seen this chronicled in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles is a really good example from medieval times, where people have seen these pillars of light coming up from the earth. They describe them in different ways. Sometimes they are mistaken and they think they're going down into the horizon or whatever, but they're not. They're looking at pillars of light that are shooting up from the earth themselves. Light poles, light pillars and light beings and stuff, sky beams and all this stuff, which is also shown to us in pop culture all the time. And people have recorded it and drawn pictures of it in antiquity, even up until like the 1800s, late 1800s. I've seen pictures of people who drew this, which means, like I said earlier, the inner earth does go through fluctuations. The pole right now is moving around. The magnetic pole is moving around. So whenever we have strong fluctuations in the magnetic field inside the earth, it releases these gases and we have these pillars of light shoot up into the sky. So we go through these ages. We have the age of light, which is earth light, not heavenly light from above the stars or the sun or anything like that. Those are night lights. Those are there for the greater night, we'll say. So we have the age of light. When those pillars of light retract and they are no longer seen, which is the time we live in now, we go into an age of darkness where we need the sun and the moon and all this stuff. Those things are not really seen during those other times. There's a whole vapor canopy to consider. When you have rapid depressurization of the atmosphere, it instantly creates a mist and a fog. So like if you're in an airplane and they depressurize the airplane in midair, you just see mist everywhere. Same thing with the earth. There'll just be mist just pouring in all over the place. And this is why, I believe this is why whenever it talks about the return of Jesus and stuff, he's always coming in on the clouds. The whole world sees him and he's coming on clouds, which means there's clouds across the world. The world will become a cloudy, foggy place in the apocalypse, basically.
Wow. What do you think the timetable is in terms of the great apocalypse? Like, have you guesstimated how long you think until this actually happens?
Yeah. So before I get right to just being direct and answering that question, because I know we have viewers and stuff and I like to consider other people, I just want to sort of preface my answer by saying I do not believe in date setting for the apocalypse. I believe Jesus himself basically never set dates. That's the first question his followers asked. When will these things be? When's this going to happen? Tell us, we got to know. And he never came right out and said, oh, May 27th of, 40,022 or whatever.
And everybody's freaking out in 2012.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting too. You should remind me to come back to that because I think 2012 hasn't come yet. I think
or it's already come and we're just in an alternate universe.
I have a theory about that too. All right. So, when, right? Jesus himself advised people to read these signs, to read the omens, that you would know when the woman is close to giving birth because of the signs. Especially if you're close to that woman, if you're the husband, you're going to know better than anybody how close she is to giving birth. We are the husband to this world, or Mother Earth. If we're in tune with her. Can you guys still hear me okay? There's a train going by.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I thought that was a bomb. I was like, oh my gosh.
Nice. I live right next to train tracks. So we need to pay attention to the signs. That's the thing I'm just trying to stress. Instead of guessing, instead of calculating, etc., especially because one of the omens of this cycle that we're in is the shortening of days. Time itself is literally shortening. So how do you calculate that? How do you factor that into mathematics or, professional guesses on when the apocalypse is going to happen? Nothing wrong with guessing. People can guess to their heart's content. And, the odds are somebody might, hit the bullseye with their guess or whatever, but I'm not one of those people. I prefer to look at the signs. I will say this though, a major indicator of the last time a huge apocalyptic event happened was when our oceans were introduced. And this is the Great Flooding, or Noah's Flood, or Deucalion, or, different names for this Great Flood. The floodwaters are still here. Our world is still inundated with water. This is important because if you have rapid depressurization on a worldwide scale, remember I said buoyancy increases. Things float. Water will float and it will get sucked up, and there will be tempest winds blowing that water higher and higher up into the sky until the majority of it gets sucked out. Our world will be flushed away, essentially, or the oceans will, I should say. So in this next cycle that we're looking at, I fully expect there not to be any oceans any longer, that there will still be large bodies of water and stuff, but nothing near the floodwaters that we have today. Those will be replaced with fresh water from inside of the earth. The ocean water comes from different places, but mainly, like I said, if we have the nitrogen and the oxygen, they're stored up inside of the earth, released for 1,000 years. We have all of this oxygen in the upper atmosphere. And then the next time that the dome opens, we have ionized hydrogen from above. Academics even agrees that the plasmasphere around the earth in their model is comprised of hydrogen. So let's say it is hydrogen. The earth opens up, cosmic hydrogen pours on in from, in like this heavenly hand or tentacles or, dragons or however you want to see it, smashes through a whole ocean, if you will, of oxygen, and boom, creates water as they intermingle with one another. And then it just starts to pour and pour and pour, and the world floods from above and below, actually, because the pressure that's being released from inside the earth pushes the inner earth waters up too. So we have the fountains of the deep that will burst forth. So anyways, sorry about not being specific about the answer. I believe that happened around, I put that around the start of the Mayan calendar, which was about a little over 3000 BC. So what is that, like almost 6,000 years ago? So I'm pretty close to the traditional biblical concept of 6,000 years and then a 1,000 year period of rest. As far as like the big apocalyptic cycle goes, that's my favorite theory on the timing of it.
What are your thoughts about the whole 2012 thing? Like, you wanted me to bring back up. Like, do you think they were off? Maybe.
Yes. Oh no, I don't think the Mayans were off. Actually,
no, but we're off.
I believe we're off. I believe our calendrical system is screwed, and it keeps. That's why they keep changing it and twisting it. And the calendar has been changed, and they keep adding days to the calendar and taking things away. And we have leap year, and we have daylight savings, and they keep screwing with time or our timekeeping methods, because our main quintessential timekeeping method changes. Those stars slow down sometimes, and they speed up sometimes in their rotation, and therefore we have to adjust down here in the bottom, on the surface world or whatever. So getting back to the quickening of days, like this was one of the prophecies of Jesus, talked about how the days would be shortened for the sake of the elect, because the elect, the wise people, will recognize time is flying past, and we're not just going to just be oblivious to it. We're recognizing time is speeding up, time is getting quicker and quicker. It's not time itself, but timekeeping, our clocks, okay? And it's a huge part of this is the governments of the world constantly updating our timekeeping digitally, which is why they want everyone to, switch off of wind up clocks or whatever. I actually think this is a huge part of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, why he's telling him don't forget to wind your watch instead of program his watch or whatever. You need to wind your watch, keep that sucker physical. You're in charge of that watch. You know what I mean?
Do you want to tell him, Jake? Go for it.
Yeah, I was telling Jeremiah he needs to watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure as soon as possible. Have you got the chance to see it yet, Jeremiah?
No, but it's because somebody on the internet said is that the same movie where we were the gay, even though we're both married?
No, that's a different one where they wear backwards hats.
Okay. Yeah, we're the backwards hat squad guys. Hey, you too. So welcome to the Backwards Hat Club.
Hey. Yeah. So the quickening of time, right? So if this is true, that we live during a time when our timekeeping methods are faster than they used to be decades ago, which I believe that there's evidence and pretty weighty truth to that, then what that means is many different things. But it also specifically implies we are not in the year that we think we are in. That if we went according to the old timekeeping methods, our years would be much further back in time, which means theoretically we haven't actually come to 2012 yet. So that is on the horizon. So some of the evidence for time speeding up, for example, is many people have actually found old video footage where somebody was recording a clock for some reason, and they would time it against a modern clock. And they find that it's about a 30th of a second off, or 1/3 of a second off. So if time is about 1/3 faster than it used to be, now we can look back at old pictures of people, say pull up pictures of someone 20 years old back in the 50s, and ask yourself, do they look 1/3 older in today's standards? Do they look older back then at the same age as someone who is that age today? Yes.
Dude, I've gone down that rabbit hole. That's so crazy. Like looking at old yearbook photos of people from the, let's just say the 50s versus now, they look like different different ages, but they're not. They all have like full beards and stuff. And I was like, I didn't even have a facial hair at that time.
Right. So timekeeping speeding up, which means the luminaries are speeding up, which means where do those come from? Where does the moon come from? There is a source. There's a lens above us, and light is passing through that lens, which means the source light, or the plasma on the other side, that is circling around like the Ouroboros of the world, waiting to get in as the egg cracks open. It is speeding up, and also tightening its circuit around. If you tighten the circuit, you speed up time. So if the plasma above the Earth tightens in its circuit as it goes around, then the luminaries that we see will get faster and faster and faster and faster. They will also start going northward. They'll also slowly start going northward until eventually you would see, hypothetically, the sun transgress the northern tropic. And then it would start to make its way, spiraling tighter and tighter and tighter until it stops over the North Pole, over the actual Holy Land, if that is the Holy Land, over the actual Temple Mount, or the holy mountain or sacred mountain at the center of the world, and appear to be like a type of God taking ownership of that place. Now, that sun would have caused desolation as it burns and burns and burns, and the surface world runs and hides underground and stuff. So now I'm seeing a lot of biblical correlations too between the Christ and the Antichrist, etc. And like I said, the Hopi prophecy and everything. But anyways, I digress. I believe that time is speeding up.
The Hopi prophecy, very, very interesting. It mentions that a sign of the times will be the sky is covered in spiders' webs. And what do we see in today's world with, chemtrails and all the different things in that sense? But they're really interesting, these different cultures throughout history that have predicted the sign of the destroyer. I think is the Egyptian narrative. Whenever the tribes of Israel left Egypt, some of the ancient bronze book talks about a sign appeared in the heavens, and it's like associated with the destroyer. And I was wondering, in your theory, where does the whole Planet X or Nibiru or that element play into the plasmaverse?
Okay, that was a good question. So the destroyer, I actually have a video called The Destroyer too, and it shows like the thumbnail is like the blue sun or whatever. But anyways, there's a book called the Colburn Bible where it's not the Bible, but it's its own thing. But it talks about a destroyer, a great destroyer, and it describes this thing that is seen in the sky by everybody. And this thing makes its appearance. This is the whole Nibiru planet, where the Anunnaki are from. It is typically Nibiru. If you look up the word's origins, it implies place of crossing, but it literally means place of the cross, a thing that is seen in the sky that has a cross on it, or that is cross-sectioned, exactly like the land that is below it, because the apex dome that hangs off of the top of the firmament is made of a reflective material, which is ice, and it will reflect what is directly below it, which is that cross-shaped land right below it. Now, I will also say that it is not a perfect bowl that hangs down. My research indicates that it sort of undulates like a pyramid as it goes down. If that's the case, then the light will reflect different portions of whatever is below. Today, or during the time of flooding, you would have a ring or a circle if you were to look up, and you would see a reflection of water. But then you'd have another ring and a circle that's reflecting the land below. Then you see another ring that's reflecting the waters up off to the side. And this is why people think Atlantis is ringed, and why it has rings, because in antiquity they could look up at the firmament and know exactly what the land below looked like if they were wise and understood what they were looking at. Ancient cartographers could map out and talk to one another, because they can spread out their perspectives or whatever, and they can start mapping out the whole earth without traveling very far at all, just by looking up. So people in antiquity, even recently, this happens from time to time whenever those geoplasmas erupt and they light up the firmament. People can see it. You can see this object hanging up there, and it's typically glowing red. Those plasmas on the other side, if it's hydrogen, like I said earlier, hydrogen will glow in the red spectrum. It'll glow a sort of magenta reddish color. So I've shared many different pictures from the Dark Ages and stuff, paintings and bestiaries and stuff like that have survived. People draw these objects in the sky. Modern people who see them and come across them, especially conspiracy theorists, tend to jump to UFOs or aliens and say, oh, it's the mothership or whatever. But that object that hangs down from the sky is seen on occasion by people. And some people, based on their perceptions and how they were brought up and what knowledge they may or may not have, will see a mothership, especially if there's a big blue beam underneath it and things are floating up to it. So some people see Nibiru, a planet. Oh my God, it's circular. It's spherical because there's space balls out there. So that's a planet. It's going to crash. It just appeared out of nowhere. Oh no, it's got to be a mothership. It's got to be alien technology. It's got to have a propulsion system, et cetera, and just start making stuff up. But I believe that is the structure of the ceiling of our world that we're looking at, that people see from time to time, which is known as the destroyer. Now, it's the destroyer because it casts all that light into our world. But like I said, when the light above gets more and more focused and more narrow, pretty soon it's not going to spread out all those beautiful stars, and the sun's not going to go all the way around. It's all going to come to a point, a laser that will burn the earth beneath it for a period of time until that blue light, because it would be a blue spectrum because it's hot, would be replaced. The destroying, destructive blue light that will come down from above, from the Death Star above, right, will be replaced as we go through a neutral point of a polarity shift. All that light disappears because the plasma above goes into flux. So there'll be no source. And then whenever everything reconstitutes itself, inside the geoplasma will erupt, and we'll have a life-giving blue light that shoots up into the heavens and rises up and then spreads out as it gets higher and higher.
Wow.
Well, just a slight redirect. Before we wrap up, I want you to go into your adventures that you're about to go on. I heard you're going to be traveling and investigating across the world, and I'd love for you to kind of share what you got going on with that and what some of the places you're going to investigate are.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. So I had mentioned that I wanted to travel the world and kind of be my own Indiana Jones. I like being an internet warrior and, researching on the internet and stuff. That's fun, but I don't really want to sit here in my chair all day long. I'd rather be there. So
right.
I had someone reach out to me and said, hey, I can then make that happen. So we have a professional photographer, a cinematographer. I'm going to be able to fly to different locations around the world, esoteric, strange, anomalous places, some popular places, in order to look for these clues of the story that I've kind of, teased to you guys today. So to look to all the physical evidence of what has been left behind on Earth, from things that appear to have been instantly petrified from place to place around the world, from strong electrical impulses from above to these cavernous systems that people of power used to hide in and go live in during apocalyptic times, and they became people of power or Christian martyrs or there's different descriptions for these people. But I'm going on the hunt for the evidence of these things, from documentations to architectural styles, because the architecture would the change in the atmosphere would necessitate a change in the architecture if the change was severe enough. So I'm going to go on location, professionally document everything in a brand new series called Chasing the Apocalypse. That will be available on my Patreon. So I might tease it and stuff here on YouTube and whatnot. But it'll be like a show, just like you would see on the Discovery Channel or the History Channel or, something like that. And I'm going to, put together different episodes, which will be these different locations around the world. And I'm starting here in the United States in Washington, D.C., because I wanted to start with the modern world. I wanted to get into the architecture, the founders of this world, or this new world, as they called it. And there's a lot of good architectural examples out there, and a lot of things where I can see where they were clearly working with the ether or the atmosphere or whatever, and the electricity that used to be amplified back then, as well as tracing back the roots of the founding fathers to these civilizations that fled from the North Pole, and how they're just sort of establishing themselves in these places of power around the world, because what is most important to them is life in life extension and extending their lives. It's not money, it's not gold, it's not any of that stuff. It is life and preserving their own lives. So where they settle down is directly involved in their own, extending their lifespans and stuff like that.
Wow, that is so awesome. So what are you going to start with in Washington, D.C. when you show up there? And then where are you going next?
Well, top 2 on my list are going to be the National Mall. Because of the layout of the National Mall, I've seen the same exact structure where you have this long landing pad type of rectangular walkway or something. And at the end of it, there's an obelisk, and at the other side, there's a dome. And I've seen that all across the world from place to place. Washington's only just one of the most popular examples of it. And I believe that was a huge electrical device, that's a type of capacitor or whatever. So I want to go walk that and check it out and examine and investigate, Washington Monument, Lincoln Monument or Memorial. The Capitol building is huge. Underneath the Capitol building, there's the picture of Washington called the deification of Washington.
We saw it, me and my wife. We went down to Washington, and it's the weirdest thing. They worship George Washington there.
Yeah.
It's so strange. Like everywhere you go, that's why they call it Washington, D.C. But there's a bust of him doing the Baphomet pose. And it's the weirdest thing. And I'll recommend one thing when you're there that most people don't think about is the Mason. There's a big Mason lodge there, and it's very creepy. And apparently Albert Pike, his remains are there. And they say you can tour it, but I think you have to be probably a Mason, I would think, to tour it. But I don't know.
Maybe. I'm going to find out, though.
Find out. Yeah. Me and my wife, we took some footage of it, not knowing that there'd be homeless people everywhere. People that, they were watching us hardcore. Like they didn't want us anywhere near their building.
Right.
But
yeah, thanks for the heads up. I'm going to check that one out too. And then after probably the National Mall, I'm definitely going to check out the Smithsonian. So I personally want to go in there and see what the history, what the facts are as they're presented to us, and kind of dig around and snoop around. I want to interview a few people and ask them, some of the deeper questions about, where the Ark of the Covenant is stored and like where all the cool Indiana Jones stuff is or whatever. And, not get into too much trouble, but I also want to make some presentations about like, here's the official narrative. Here's the story. This comes from the quote unquote founders of this particular region, etc. And I also have some theories about like, I personally don't even believe George Washington was like a real person, but, I'm going to get into the theories of that, the Tartarian Empire, the families that used to wander about and be nomadic all the way back to the age of exploration and, the whole dream of the Americas and stuff and what they were really looking for.
Dude, yeah. And the Smithsonian is cool because it's all free, but there are so many different buildings and so many different like museums. It's like so hard to choose which one you want to go to. But I will tell you, the one that made me lose faith in dinosaurs was the natural history one. I was like, there's no way dinosaurs are real. And they're supposed to make you believe in it. And it's like, I don't believe this. This is all BS. None of this looks like anything realistic.
All of the good stuff is buried down in the basement.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking for elevators and stairways while I'm there.
Dude, you should check out Rockwall, Texas. Me and Jake just went there and did a whole like little documentary thing, but there's an actual rock wall built underneath the city of Rockwall. And it was apparently built by giants. Even the lady in the judge's office thought that it was built by giants, but they say, no, it's a natural formation. There's no way. I have rock samples. There's no way.
Yeah, I'm gonna check out the Smithsonian. There's a part of it that looks like a castle. It's closed right now, which is interesting too. They're closing down a lot of these government buildings, but especially museums lately, where they're having like incidents at museums. And I feel like this is all kind of staged so that they can take all of the works of art and stuff, replicate them, and then like store them away for their apocalypse or whatever, and then have the replicas back up during their re-grand opening or something like that.
It's funny you say that because one of the exhibits is a gorilla, and it looks like a gorilla, but they say that it is man-made. It's not a real gorilla. It's the weirdest thing. So it kind of makes sense with what you're saying.
Yeah, they're preparing. It's just like National Treasure or whatever, where they put the fake one up and they take it down and stick it in the vault somewhere. Man, and Greenland, that movie that came out like last year or 2 years ago called Greenland. Yeah, that one was very similar, where they kind of stuck everything in the seed vault-esque, bunkers. So after Washington D.C., where would be the first place you would adventure to abroad?
Well, there's a couple places that we have in mind right now. Me and my cameraman, like, he really wants to check out Machu Picchu, and some places in that area, which I believe to be a place of power. I in my second book, I talk about what I call places of power, which are just huge openings in the earth that are, where the people can come up out of the inner earth or whatever. Animals can come out of there too. They tend to be islands after the world floods, which is why you get all these exotic, weird, gigantic creatures on random islands that can't get off the island and no one knows how they got there or whatever. So he wants to check that out. I personally, number one on my list is going to be Fontainebleau Forest in France. I want to go to France and check out Fontainebleau. It's in the forest area. They have these weird rock formations just strewn throughout this forest, and I mean a dense forest with all these trees and stuff. But all these rocks, from every picture I've seen on the internet, look like something. Everyone, without even having to like really peer into it or whatever. Like, some look like giant heads of people, some look like huge animals, and they all have this sort of reptilian scaly skin look to them or whatever. And there's just hundreds and hundreds of examples of these things all throughout this forest. So I personally want to go there myself to examine it, maybe take a sample and stuff, possibly get it tested, get the samples tested or whatever. While I'm in France, I would also like to visit a few places. Obviously, I want to check out the Eiffel Tower. I've researched the history and the origin of the Eiffel Tower and its relationship to the World's Fair and stuff. I've got theories about that. And the catacombs, I'm pretty interested in visiting too. And I believe that, there's a reason why they buried their dead underground in these tunnel systems that I believe were already there, because this energy has the power to reanimate the dead, that it kickstarts the cellular structure of dead people and the bodies start coming back together, and you literally have the dead rising.
Wow.
That's great. Well, if you ever need us to promote it for you, we'd be happy to.
Cool, thanks.
You can come back on and share. And hopefully you can come to TrutherCon 2026. If you ever come to Dallas, I'll give you a personal tour of where JFK was shot, or if you want to see somewhere else, I'll try to make it happen.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. And I just wanted to say, I love that you got your channel started because you were doing it for posterity's sake. You were doing it for, to pass down to your children this information because it's your passion, your project, it's your interests, and you're trying to, have something to be like, this is how I view the world, and this is for the next generation. And I thought that was really cool how you described that. And, keep on the investigation, man. It's super cool what you're looking into.
Thanks. Yeah, I didn't even know what YouTube was back then. I was just started talking to the camera. Okay. I had a whiteboard. I'm like, this is what this means over here. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate that you took the time to invite me. I'm honored.
We appreciate you coming on, and we're honored. So thank you for coming on Skiba News Nation. And everybody go follow him on social media. Where can they find you at?
So on YouTube, here on YouTube, youtube.com/JayDreamerZ. It's JayDreamer and then the letter Z at the end. You can also go to my website. I have a sweet website. Everything that I have just shared with you guys, I have physical examples, visual examples, audio examples across my entire website. It's like visiting a museum of everything I just talked about. And then, of course, if people want to support me, they can go over to Patreon, where I have different chats 24/7. They can just jump in the chat, upload pictures, share things, introduce themselves. And of course, I've got all the other ones too: Instagram, TikTok, stuff like that.
Awesome, man. Well, you're always welcome to come on the show, and thank you for coming on, man.
No problem. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great talking, Jay.
If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. huge shout out to all of our Patreons out there. If you like bonus content, you want some extra Skiba News Nation stuff, please go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
Son of the legendary Rob Jeremiah Skiba.
It's like they don't even want to wake up.
He's on a quest for truth.